Did the BBC Panorama programme on alleged FIFA corruption wreck England's chances of hosting the 2018 World Cup?
Did the BBC Panorama programme wreck England's chances of hosting the Cup? Nadine Dorries.
Gosh, I don't. Far be it from me as a politician to say that the press should be suppressed in any way. And we are a nation which does have freedom of speech. Very lucky to have freedom of speech. And I don't think any politician should ever become involved in trying to suppress or cajole or coerce the media in any way. Having said that, I think it was a shame. It would have been nice if perhaps they could have waited till tomorrow or till next week. And it was disappointing what was in the Panorama programme. But, you know, the BBC have to have, and will always have to have, as will any broadcaster, the absolute right to make their own programmes and decide when they want to view them. That's not the job of politicians.
So there are two questions, really. Was it right to run it is one, and did it effectively ruin our chances of hosting the World Cup is the other question.
Well, they were right to run it. Of course they were right to run it, because it exposed fraud, I think, or alleged fraud. So, of course, they were right, and it was great investigative journalism. But my point is, I'm not sure. It would have been nice if they could have waited a few days to show it, because it wouldn't, I don't know if it would have made any difference to the outcome. But
if it did make a difference to the outcome, you'd then be saying, well, we won it despite the fact of believing that the FIFA committee is a bit corrupt here and there.
Well, possibly. But, you know, it was the BBC's decision. They made the programme. It was their idea to do. We can't change what's happened. And I think that's it, really. We have to live with what's been discovered in the programme, what the result is today.
You, sir, in the fourth row.
It sounds typical of a politician to say, why can't they wait? And we've looked at the corruption of politicians. We're looking at the corruption in all of this. They were right to actually air it. Panorama is an important programme.
Okay. And you, sir. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, I think it's about the greater good. And the thing is, whilst everything is permissible, not everything is beneficial. And the problem with that, what that means is sometimes there are big moral issues at stake. And so it's not about selling papers or clicks on websites. It's about what's the bigger picture here. If we're reporting, I think the media have got to be a lot more accountable before they just do things and then say, oops.
So you think they should have thought twice before running the show?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Certainly the timing, I agree with Dean, the timing of it was absolutely key. And we don't know the outcome, but certainly the timing of it was quite critical.
Ken Livingstone.
Well, we only got 2 votes, so I doubt if it made the difference. If we'd lost by 2, the BBC wouldn't be terribly popular with many of our football fans. Clearly, we weren't going to win. I have to say, if you remember, that Panorama did a programme 15 months before the Olympic vote, exposing 1 or 2 dodgy members of the IOC. That was incredibly damaging. If we'd had the vote then, we wouldn't have won. We had a year or more to recover. Memories had faded. And, I mean, I was out to get £8 billion of investment into London, so I'd have been very unhappy. All I would say is this. If it had been on a knife edge, I would have said, if I was the BBC, do we really want the odium of costing us this event? Put it on the week after. It's not like they're going to... I mean, well, actually, they might very well have bunked to somewhere where you can't extradite them, but some of them are very dodgy.
Well, that's interesting. So you would actually, if you'd been in running the BBC, have said, hang on a bit, this is going to happen, postpone it.
Just put it back a week. I mean, why do it the week before when it's bound to be... When the Panorama programme about the Olympics came out, we had a year to actually say, it's not going to be like that every week, you know.
OK. John Sargent, you're a former BBC man. You know the way these things work in the BBC.
Well, no, it would have been appalling to have held it back. And the idea that you could then keep this information, as it were, secret within the BBC, and then you would have revealed it in a programme the week after. And what would have been the world reaction to that? Sour grapes. The British establishment combine to say that this wonderful body that has not given them the prize is corrupt. It would have been appalling.
What if we'd won and they'd done it? If we'd won and they'd run it?
Now, if we'd won...
So you didn't deserve to win it?
No, if we'd won, it'd be completely different. We was robbed. Of course we should have won. Okay. And then the whole argument would have been quite different. No, the truth is, I'm afraid, rather sadly, they're accused of corruption, and what have they chosen? I'm afraid I have to say this, they've chosen the team from the most corrupt country that was winning it.
You, sir.
completely agree with that, because the thing is, if they brought it back, then it means the BBC are controlling the press. So it's not really free speech. So it's now turned into they're deciding the times when they're going to show it, or when the times when they're not.
Does anybody agree with what Ken said, that it should have been put off for a week? Yes, you're saying in the blue there.
The whole issue of sort of delaying it a week is very important, because it was clearly designed to be put on TV 2 days before the vote to have the maximum impact possible. So it was clearly designed to sort of bring down the bid in that respect, and I totally agree that it should have been put back. There's no reason as to why it shouldn't have been.
Christopher Mayer.
Yeah, I'm in the putting back camp, I think, because it was clearly put on, 2, 3, 4 days before the vote was taken, in the cause of ratings chasings. I mean, if you are editor of Panorama and you want people to watch your show, that's when you're going to do it. I absolutely agree that the issues discussed in the programme needed to be aired. There's been a stink around FIFA for a very, very long time indeed. I think Ken is quite right in saying with only 2 votes, one of which was British, it seems highly unlikely if the show wasn't put out that night.
But the reporter said that he wasn't ready with the material until that Monday, that they only got the stuff together in the final few days.
Well, that makes the same point, I think, David, because there would have been no harm in showing it a week later. They did not know when they put it on whether it was going to be 2 votes or 10 votes or whatever. It was, in my view, an error of judgment by the producers of the show. They could have shown it a few days later, and we could have ridden over the thing of sour grapes.
Christopher, you've not answered the point that I made, which is that if you delay it, apart from that you're sitting on all this information, you're keeping it from the public deliberately, but you then get all the odor of sour grapes if you lose.
No, the answer to that
would have been the reaction. You were an ambassador in Washington. What would have people have said around the world? It's sour grapes.
No, you could have dealt with this perfectly easily. Programmes are sat on all the time. Moments for delivery and transmission of kinds of decisions that producers have to take all the time. Sitting on it, we're not going to sit on it for a year or 6 months. For 1 week, 5 days, perfectly doable.
Okay, hold on. Danny Alexander.
Well, this process of FIFA trying to choose the sites for the next World Cups has been going on for months and months and months. So I think it seems a bit unlikely that one television programme will tip the balance one way or another. And you know, to be honest, in our society, free media, free speech is very, very important. It would be great to have a free media and a World Cup, but the bit I most want to have is the free media. Best response would be to ensure that the final of the 2018 World Cup is Scotland beating England in a close-run thing.
But you will, Danny Alexander, you'll have noted that Mr. Blatter, Sepp Blatter, according to the BBC, spoke to the executive before they voted and reminded them of what, quote, certain media and recent media coverage. In other words, the man running the thing said, when you're making your decision, don't forget you've just been rubbished by the BBC, by the media.
Well, I think
proof of that is that if it's true that intervention was made, doesn't that suggest it was sour grapes on the part of FIFA?
I've no idea if it was true or not, and I'm sure the people around the table had many, many different things in their mind when they're making the decision. I think, you know, we have a habit in this country of trying to look for scapegoats when these sorts of things happen. The fact is, we should play it like a sporting event. We worked really hard to win. Unfortunately, we were not successful. It's very disappointing. But we should be magnanimous in defeat and congratulate the Russians on hosting the next World Cup.
The choice here isn't whether we stage the World Cup or have a free media. The question is, what does a week cost us? If it had been close, and it clearly wasn't, and the Panorama programme did not impact, that made the difference. If it had been 1 or 2 votes, you might have been able to say that. But if it had been close, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people in this country would have got work on preparing for the stadium, work servicing all of that. We'd attracted a vast amount of tourist income. It would have been very good for Britain. And I actually think it might have lifted our own football game, frankly.
What do you think of the choice of Russia, which, I mean, we may come on to the leaks later on, but Russia now described as virtually a mafia state, getting this thing in 2018.
Well, David, I think the really interesting thing in this is what I'm looking for is a WikiLeaks leak, which may appear tomorrow or next week sometime, which reveals that the Russian state has been paying members of FIFA to vote for Russia. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I mean, I bet...
You may want it, but you think it's been happening.
I have no idea at all, but I bet you, ladies and gentlemen, people are going to start asking the question, how did the Russians manage that? And...
this sounds like an unsubstantiated smear, Mr. Mayor.
No. This is an interesting hypothesis which I throw out to the audience for them to discuss among themselves and chew over.
I mean, think about this. If you're a Russian journalist and you make an investigation like that, you'll be found with your throat cut. The death toll of good journalists in Russia really is where you put your life on the line. Panorama didn't actually, whether it's this week or next week.
Danny Alexander, what do you make of Russia, now labelled virtually a mafia state, getting this huge economic boost and country? Are you going to be up to it, capable of doing it, or is it just going to play into the hands of crooks?
Well, I haven't studied the Russian bid. I'm sure that FIFA have decided that they are up to it, and we're, supporting all the efforts for democracy in Russia. David Cameron is going to be visiting Russia soon. It's a very important part of Greater Europe, if you like. We need to ensure that we have good economic and political relations.
Okay, we'll go on in a moment. Just take one or two points. The woman there on the gangway. Yes.
What's the